Is everybody from IHOP gone already?
Yes, I think
Okay. Because I am all about first impressions. I'm huge into first impressions because they're permanent. Once you make a first impression, it's really hard to change. And I'll change the topic here for a second because I'm going to share something with you. But first impressions is, to me, the catalyst that makes you memorable at a networking event. I think at an event like this, or I'm sure you guys, I mean, you sound like you go to every single event every week.
Pretty much, yes.
Monday through Friday.
Yes.
So
He runs them all.
Yeah, that's true too.
he does something, he goes to my chamber events, and he does something that makes him memorable. People know what to say when he asks the question. And what is it that you say when you...
I'm your local independent agent representing.
So that kind of automation, you drank his Kool-Aid, so you know what to say.
Appreciate that.
He obviously makes a really good first impression, and that is all about body language. That's what body language is. It actually makes you project an image of yourself, whether it's a good one or a bad one. That's what I want to make sure that you're aware at this meeting. I want to make sure that when you're talking, you're doing it as truthful and as honest as possible so that your body language is in alignment with what you're saying. Because when it's not, it's extremely visible. Now, how many of you go to more than one networking event every week? What would you say is the hardest thing about a networking event for you? What's your most difficult task when you go meet someone? Kim, I'm sorry?
Just finding the time to get to know.
Okay, time, I can't help it with that one, because you're not at a networking event there. But once you get there, what's the hardest part for you?
Explaining your
Yes.
product.
Look, it's breaking the ice when you come into a room full of new people that are all in the same business with you, and just coming in and being treated as an equal.
So, what do you do? And what's your name, I'm sorry?
John Matthews, I'm the community ambassador for R2R Health.
Okay, so what do you do to break the ice?
Probably, I don't know, usually I just come in and do the 30-second commercial, and then afterwards I talk to people. I like to crack jokes, whatever.
Okay.
Try to get to know people.
Yes, sir.
Finding commonality in your, not only your business, but ultimately your personality. That's what's going to ultimately lead to trust.
And the thing is, you know, when I'm a very on-time person. I like to be on time everywhere I go. In fact, if I'm on time, I'm late, is my thinking. If my meeting is at 11:30, I'll be here at 11:20. But at networking events, sometimes people arrive late to the networking event. There's already people paired up, talking to each other. What do you do then? Because a lot of people don't know what conversations they can actually join during a networking event. And that's what body language can tell you. So not only your body language, but their body language talking to each other will tell you so much about what's going on in that conversation. So for example, somebody actually asked me this at a meeting. He said, I see people paired up. I see two people talking. How do I know that I can actually talk to them? Because what do we do? And I have this, I call them satellites. I have two people talking to each other, and then you see one person that kind of walks around and kind of takes a look, and then kind of walks around again, and they really want to be a part of that conversation, but they don't know how to become part of it. And what happens, if you can observe, I have a confession to make actually.
You come early to observe.
I have a foot fetish.
TMI.
I know, it's a little TMI.
Well, it was a good meeting.
Yeah. What time is it? Am I done?
We now have a new disclaimer.
It's been great. It's not what you're thinking, obviously. You're thinking the perverted version, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm saying I like to observe people's feet at events. Obviously, I can't do it here. We're all sitting facing each other on the table. It's really hard to do. But those events where we're talking standing up, where there's a bar, there's maybe some hors d'oeuvres, but there's people paired up talking standing up, I look at their feet because their feet are going to tell me exactly what's happening in that conversation. And that's what I want you to do. If there's one superpower I want to give you today, it's the power of feet observation. I want you all to have a foot fetish after today's meeting. Now, don't blame me if your spouse gets freaked out about that. But for networking events, I want you to have that foot observation. So, for example, David, I'm gonna bring you up here if you don't mind. I know you don't like being in the spotlight, so I'm gonna put you right in the spotlight.
Very shy.
So, if David and I are having a great conversation, and we really connected, we just met and we're exchanging ideas, exchanging information, we really don't want anybody else to be part of the conversation. And mind you, we don't do this on purpose, it's just when people are connected, they mirror each other, okay? So when we're talking and we're really into the conversation, our feet are facing each other. That's where you see the satellite people where they start going around because they can't get a good read of whether or not they should join the conversation. And they might be tap you or they'll come around and they'll laugh and, you know, at a joke that they didn't get, but they'll do that. Now, if we want people to join our conversation or we're, you know, mirroring each other because we're open but we're not close to other people, we'll actually point our feet outwards. And what it does, it creates this little triangle here that actually now tells April that she can actually walk into the conversation. I'm putting you in the spotlight as
Oh, you
well.
want me to actually?
So now, she can actually join the conversation, and now we have a group that includes her. And she actually can walk in, introduce herself, and we wouldn't feel like she's invading our space.
Does this work in dating life too?
Aren't you married?
So if you're walking into a group of three, that's different.
God, I wish you were back.
So,
For swingers.
we'll talk about David. Invite me for another one, and we'll talk about dating tips as well if you want to. So, if we're talking now here, we can invite a fourth person, or we can invite more people into the group. But now you're aware of what's happening in this conversation and whether or not you can join in. So, I want you to look at people's feet to see if you can join in the conversation. If you see them facing each other, just keep going. You'll find another group where you can join in and then come back and check on them if you really want to talk to somebody specific. So thank you both for that help. Now, what's the other worst thing that could happen to you during networking or when you're talking to somebody? This could be dating, for example.
You get stuck talking to somebody you don't like.
You start talking to somebody you don't like. What if you're the person that they don't like? What if they're the ones that got stuck with you?
What if they just turn around and walk away?
Don't chase
It's
them.
like, oh, I'm sorry, I have to go.
Joe will chase them, but
Oh,
don't.
yeah. He'll chase
You
anything.
need security.
He'll chase anything, is what he said. I didn't say that. So, what to me, I look for really, I always say that body language is about body language mindfulness. It's about knowing what you're doing with your body language. I don't tell people to observe other people's body language until they understand their own body language. You need to know what your face is doing. You need to know what your hands is doing. I have some people here that think they do too many gesturing with their hands. That tells me a lot. That tells me they're at least aware of their body language. So now I want you to be aware of your feet. I want you to be aware of your hands. I want you to be aware of your face and your head. I want you to start thinking what it is that you do when you're talking to somebody, what you do when you introduce somebody. Because the first thing that we do when we meet somebody is what?
Shake their hand.
We shake hands, right? So we want to make a really good first impression. So let's go back to the first impression. The only way I can make a good first impression is I approach you in a way that makes you trust me. It's all about trust. If I were to ask you, what is the first thing that the brain looks at when you first meet a person? What would you say it is?
Smile.
Smile? Eyes? What else? Not feet.
Posture, how firm the hand.
Posture? The hand, actually.
Hand.
So before we even shake hands, the brain is looking at the hands. Do you know why?
Male or female?
Danger.
Danger. We still, under our brain, we still have that reptile brain, right? That limbic brain that is, am I going to get killed here or not? There's a lot of ways to get killed that does not involve actual murder. So it is looking at the hands to see if I'm going to shake hands with this person or this person's coming towards me. I don't care if they're smiling. I don't care if they're beautiful. Can I see their hands? So I have a program called the full frontal factor. Don't look up full frontal online. Just look full frontal factor.
Oh.
Foot fetish, full frontal. What's this guy selling here? He sells something weird.
What do you got next week, Joel?
I got time. So the full frontal factor is about giving your best impression right off the bat. And the only way to do that is for you to trust me right off the bat. So the only way I do that is with a really good handshake, eye contact, and a smile. Now her brain saw my hand so that she knows she can trust me. I'm giving her my vulnerable sides. I'm not crossing my arms, I'm not protecting myself. Now she feels like she can trust me immediately. I give her good eye contact and I give her a smile. Those are the three things that I always tell people. First thing you do is good handshake, good eye contact, and a smile. Your smile is your superpower. So do it at every single event and you almost guarantee a really good first impression. Because what's going to happen next is what are you going to say to guarantee a good first impression, right? Because I put my foot in my mouth several times based on what I said. So I try not to do that. Now, somebody said, what happens when you get stuck with the person that doesn't like you or you're not getting along with? I usually can tell when a conversation is over before they start acting like they don't want to be a part of the conversation just by looking at their feet. Again, we go back to the feet part. If I'm talking to somebody and the worst thing that can happen is when they start looking away from me trying to find a better person to speak to, right? And we've all been there or we've done that. But if I'm aware of people's feet, I know that she was ready to leave that conversation a while back. And it may be not that she's not interested in my conversation, it's that she might be needing a drink, or she might need to go to the bathroom, or she might need to go get food. So what I can do is look at her feet and see where they're pointing. Usually one foot will be pointing exactly to where she or he wants to go. So if I'm talking to Jana? Banana? Janet. I have an accent.
It's okay.
I'm a foreigner.
Those with accents are exempted from the rules.
Excellent. So I call you banana.
too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You have to ask.
So if I'm talking to her and we were having a really good conversation, but I'm ready to go outside or I'm ready to go to the bar, if she looks at my feet, she'll know, she can tell which direction they're pointing or what one of them is pointing to know that I'm ready to go somewhere else. So before I start looking above you or start looking for somebody better, if you look at my feet, now she has permission to say, you know what, I'm going to go get a drink. Do you want something? I'm going to go get a drink and maybe come back. Now she's giving permission to walk away from the conversation without feeling odd about cutting me off or waiting for me to start looking for more interesting people to talk to. Because that might not always be the case. It's just I might be looking at something that I want to go towards.
What if you're the most interesting man in the world?
He just got canned.
I know, I was so sad about that.
So, and he was very interesting.
He retired.
I think he got, well, I think they just ended his contract. I think it's kind of like the Geico caveman, you know, it's done with, and it was great for a while. If you're the most interesting man in the world, I don't think it matters what you do with your body language. Obviously, you're doing something good,
Yeah,
and people are gravitating towards you.
I like that.
So,
You got chicks on both sides of you.
now, let's talk about handshakes. Tell me the worst handshake you've ever gotten. This?
Oh, that one's
The
bad.
limp fish? Yes, sir.
It's actually just so everyone knows, it's the person that really likes themselves and they do the turnover.
Oh, I hate the turnover.
That's the one.
I will fight that back.
So, come over here so that we can demonstrate the turnover
I'll come to
handshake.
the person.
Because there's a very good reason why they're doing that. And this is, what I'm about to say here in a little bit is something you can tweet if you're interested. So, the handshake that he's talking about, I'm the one that's going to come in like this, and I'm going to shake hands. But he's going to do something to prevent me having this type of handshake, and what he's going to do is going to try to turn the handshake over. Why would he do that?
Because you're having dominance over others.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want me to do that. He wants to either equalize it, so he'll try to just put it in the middle, or he's going to say, no way, man, I'm going to take over this handshake. Right? Now, how weird is it that we've been holding hands for this long?
It's a little weird, it's a little.
What about this one? So they do that, they come up top like that. I come in right here and I go, hey, how you doing?
So this space here, it's called proxemics in body language, right? So if I do this just from here, it's not a big deal, although I'm establishing dominance as well. I'm telling you, hey, I still want to take over this meeting. Now, if I come a little bit closer and do this, not invading your personal space, you probably retreat a little bit and you start feeling a little bit more, you start being agitated, depending on how big your space is.
Sure.
So in South America, the space in between people is a lot closer than the space here in the United States. And in some countries, it's even further away. So this is probably normal for a first social interaction that we're having. Now, there's another way to disarm that kind of handshake without turning it over. So if somebody comes in like this, instead of doing the turnover, you can actually grab their elbow here and it actually disarms that handshake.
That's how you do that? Just touch their elbow?
So I grab it, don't touch their weenus though.
Grab the wiener.
Show us some Jordan real quick.
Raise your hand if you know what the weenus is.
That fun spot.
Raise your, yeah. So this here, this little skin is called the weenus in the elbow.
So you grab that when you shake.
So if you pinch it
I knew that.
and shake hands, it's going to be very, very weird. So I try not to pinch it, I just put my hand over it. It actually disarms the handshake. But this brings me up to a really good example. The reason I tell people not to be the turnover, not to turn the hand over, is read the handshake, don't change the handshake. Because now, if he comes in at me from the top like this, and I grab his hand, now I know what his intentions are, or what kind of personality he has, or what he wants to accomplish with this meeting. He's telling me he wants to take control over it. If I'm a sales guy, I'm going to give him a little bit of control, or at least I'm going to make him feel like he has control over this situation. If he comes in at me like this, then I know that he's more submissive, maybe he needs more direction, maybe he's more insecure about the conversation that we're about to have. So I'm going to have to try to control the conversation or control the sale as much as possible. Now, a perfect handshake is vertical, dry, and firm. Why do you think I say dry? But what happens, so Diane, right? Diane. She just grabbed a drink with her right hand. If I were to shake her hand right now, I just got a cold hand and a little bit wet. That's why I tell people do not hang around bathrooms expecting to shake hands with them. It happens. But if we're having drinks at a networking event and we shake hands, we're gonna get wet handshakes, and that makes for a bad first impression. So either dry your hand or wrap a napkin around your glass when you have a drink at a networking event. Or
Hold it in your left hand.
Absolutely. But if you start being aware of those things, then it makes for a better, thank you very much, I'm not going to keep you here. It makes for a better first impression. Now, I have what I consider is the worst handshake story ever, at least in my opinion. I used to work at an office here in Dallas. And one day, I'm walking towards the cafeteria and I see a friend of mine walking towards me. And I see that he raises his hand as if to go for really strong, hearty handshakes. I'm like, okay, I'll play along. And I'm coming right from below, right here, right? So we're both, imagine that slow motion. We're gonna go for that really strong handshake, and all of a sudden, he closes his fist. And I don't have time for a fist bump or to react to the fist bump, so what do? I just keep going, and I just grabbed his fist right here. It was so awkward. The most awkward part is that we stayed holding hands like this for like 20 seconds before I let go. We didn't talk to each other for about 2 weeks after that. Yeah. So be aware of the handshakes and be aware that some people like to fist bump, and if you have time, hopefully you'll have time to bump fists with them.
How do
as
you
well.
disarm hugs?
Hugs?
Do you like go in for a handshake and they're like, hug?
So you want to disarm the hug before it actually happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just don't want to hug.
So
Name tag.
don't hug me.
Oh,
Don't feed the animals. Don't hug me. There's a lot of huggers in the world. In South America, it's extremely normal to give somebody a hug, especially you give a handshake and then you give them a hug and people expect it. Here I've noticed there's a lot more, it's not as expected unless you really know the person. So I would tell the hugger at a networking event, do not hug. That's not, unless, you know that you can go for the hug, don't hug.
Yeah.
If you're the person getting it and you just don't feel comfortable with hugs, what you can do is when you shake hands, grab their elbow, grab their shoulder. Because that will give you actually that distance from them. In fact, it happened with Donald Trump and his own wife, Melanie. When she came on stage to congratulate him after the speech, he grabbed her shoulder like this. He didn't want to go for the hug with his own wife. It was really awkward because after that, he patted his own daughter, which is kind of weird the way he reacted. It's just a weird, but Donald Trump has the worst body language I've seen in my life. So I'm not saying if you like him or dislike him, it's the body language is interesting to observe.
You just don't like my firm chest.
But grab the shoulder and it'll give you an out from that to prevent that hug. So.
All right, we have time for one more
Yes, sir.
question, or okay, two more, Paul and John. Paul, you go first.
How do you adjust a bad grip when
Or
things
like
just
the-
don't
the-
meet right and it's just
half grip,
awkward?
it's like the half grip.
So I have a fun technique to do that. I call it the Control Z or undo technique. I actually literally will, so if I go to SWAT and I end up grabbing like this, or he ends up grabbing me wrong, I'll go, you know what? Let's start that over. Hi, I'm Leo. I'll do the handshake. Because we both know that that's an awkward handshake. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot to do with body language you need to put in context. There might be an arthritis doctor or somebody that specializes with patients that have pains, so they probably have a soft handshake anyway. So you can't just do that with everybody, but if you feel that you can get away with it, do a Control Z and start the handshake again. Hold on a second.
What do you do about the vice grip?
The vice grip. Please don't have a vice grip. You can scream. Let them know. I don't think they know that they do that. There's a lot of people that have that vice grip. When I tell the perfect handshake is you're matching their firmness. So what you're going to do is when they give you the vice grip, you're going to try to match that firmness as well. And that's going to hurt to both of you at some point. But I actually wince when people give me a bad handshake. And I kind of let them know, like, ow, dude, you know, come down. Because that's a domineering, attitude. And it's not always good at a networking event.
Most people that have vice grips, if you get one, just if they're a male, just say, what year did you get out of the Marines? Because 90% of them are all ex-Marines.
I don't mind so much that it's hard, is when they do it to women that are wearing a lot of rings. That's when you can actually draw blood. So, one more, Diane.
What does it mean, or, I mean, I guess everybody has a different opinion, but what does it mean when you have that real,
Limp.
and I mean, I'm going to offices and stuff, and people, how do you do it? You're wanting to meet someone and they'll just kind of, oh, you're gonna shake my hand, and they're just,
Yeah,
I don't even
that's what I
know.
was gonna ask.
I think people need handshake etiquette and handshake process. I mean,
Etiquette
it
in
just,
general.
people don't know how important a good handshake is. And I think kids need to learn that early on. When they go to an interview, they don't know how to handshake. They don't look at people in the eye. I mean, every time he meets somebody, the first thing I tell him is, look at people in the eye. Don't just go, hey, I'm on there. No, I need to make eye connection. When we touch hands, we're both building oxytocin in our brains, which is a connection chemical. We want that oxytocin. He's probably overdosed with oxytocin after we held hands for like 3 minutes. But eye contact is extremely important because it builds oxytocin as well. So as far as a bad handshake, unfortunately, we're going to get those, and we just deal with it. We know that that person has a bad handshake.
Read it, don't change it.
Send them to me, and I'll tell them how to do it. Yeah, read it, don't change it.
Leo Cardenas here, everybody.